That's right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, I'm AJ Malillo,
And I'm Stephen Rambola.
and you're listening to Jersey First TV, watching Jersey First TV, and you can get all of your Jersey First content on jerseyfirst.org, or you can check us out on YouTube or Vimeo. You can hit that notification bell. You can subscribe. You could go to jerseyfirst.org where you can sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our pledge. You can get all your Jersey First content, the Nader Narrative, Real Talk with Fernando. You can check us out also on OnNJ, on demand, anytime, onnj.com. Steven, what's going on? What is up, dude? Another week in the books.
That's it, man. We are we're getting to that time where we were just talking about this before the show. Classes are starting to wrap up. I got my last week of my first semester of 1L happening next week. Is very exciting. It's like kind of like the quasi end, because it's not really the end, then you got to deal with the monstrosity that is finals, but it feels like some sort of end is coming, and that's really refreshing. It flew by. It didn't. I was gonna say it kind of flew by. Not even kind of. Absolutely. I feel like I got here, blinked, and now all of a sudden I have to start worrying about finals. So that's probably been the most pertinent thing going on in my life. I think since we last spoke, I didn't have a chance to tell the viewers, but I went to the Mr. Olympia convention that was going on down here last weekend, which, if you know anything about me, big bodybuilding fan, was an incredible experience. Got to meet some cool people, take some great pictures, tried a bunch of giving out tons of free stuff. I think I got enough energy drinks to last me probably through finals for free at the event. So that was really cool. And on a personal note, I'll say that this was the first event that I really since I've moved to Florida, sought out, went to, that was like a full blown, entire day's worth of things to do. And I went totally by myself. And it was awesome. Like going and enjoying something that you enjoy by yourself, with yourself, getting what you want out of it. It was a really awesome experience for me. And I'm really proud of myself that I stepped out of my comfort zone, went and did something, cool, unique, but also on my own. I think a lot of people got to spend more time with themselves. That's one thing I've really learned throughout this whole experience so far, is time with yourself is so valuable. The way that you talk to yourself, the things that you do with yourself, for yourself, the narrative that you tell the story affects so much of the outside world and your ability to accomplish and be successful and have confidence. And I think that that's something that a lot more people, especially our age, really need to focus and practice on, because it's paid me out in dividends, personally, emotionally, spiritually, that I couldn't even describe. And, as this chapter starts to close, on the beginning of the law school career and everything we were just talking about, I think that's the biggest thing that I've been thinking about recently, is just how grateful I am for the opportunity to be with myself as much as I am. So that's what's been going on. We are looking forward to finals coming around the corner, and getting feet back on New Jersey soil. That's another big thing I'm looking forward to. Coming back for Thanksgiving, getting back for winter break. So just kind of in a weird limbo period, but loving every second of it and enjoying the entire process, one step at a time till we reach the finish line.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, getting your feet back into New Jersey soil right at the appropriate time, Thanksgiving and winter break from
Yep.
Florida, where
Yep.
it's going to
Yep.
be snowing and cold. So it's perfect. It's perfect timing.
It was
Um,
82 degrees today.
yeah, it was like 65 in the afternoon, but it's probably, as I look outside and it's dark out, it's probably like 30 degrees now.
Yeah. I think we're still rocking. We're still rocking a beautiful, 75 right now.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, so you're coming right at the appropriate time, right when the weather's at its best up here in the Northeast. And but you know what? I'm excited. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. You're right. And then final season starts up. Luckily, I only have three finals this season, so that should be good. I got a big one in evidence class. I got my legal professions class, and then I got my law of investigations class. But luckily, my writing class is wrapping up, so I won't have to worry about that come
Nice.
final season. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's good though. Yeah. I think your point about finding things that you enjoy doing for yourself, by yourself, is exactly right. You have to learn who you are, especially when you're our age. I think we're at that prime age of figuring out who you are and who you want to be going forward. And once you can figure that out, I think everything becomes more like cake from that point out. Not that it gets
Hmm.
easier, but once you figure out who you want to be, living your life and having the other people in your life, I think just becomes added benefits to it.
I would agree with that. And like you said, it's who you want to be is really part of that journey, and having that time with yourself. Experiences like I always take it for granted that like I'm in school at this age, I have the time to really sit and ponder and think about these things. But having a direction, having an idea of the person that you want to be, what are your values? What do you stand for? What gets you out of bed every morning? What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? Like all of those things. And they don't have to be the same as they were when you were 20, when you were 18, when you were 15. They shouldn't be. I think if they are, then you really got to do that soul search. But give yourself that time, that space, and do the proper thinking, because I'll double down on it. Once you have your priorities, your goals, your visions, those positive affirmations and all those experiences with yourself, you can start having them on a different level with other people, with other things, your career, your school, whatever it might be. It's going to change your life.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I have nothing to add. I have nothing to. I think that's exactly right. I think you're spot on, 100% perfectly correct. You're not 100% perfect. Nobody's 100% perfect,
Nobody,
but you're
nobody.
100% perfectly
But
correct on this issue.
can you tell this is two law students having a conversation? You had a crazy week, though.
I did. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit exhausted right now. I've been running. Started off with Monday Night Football at MetLife Stadium, and we all know how that went, so we don't have to rehash it. But it was a lot of fun to be at MetLife Stadium for that Jet game. That was enjoyable, um, despite what happened. Then Tuesday night, I had a competition for my writing class. It's the 64th annual Remels competition, the moot court competition at Villanova. And that first night, it went really well. I think we find out tonight who moves on to the next round. But so I went Tuesday and Wednesday. One I did on brief, meaning I wrote like a whole brief for the class, and it was on the side that I wrote the brief for was that first night. And then the second night, last night, I had to argue the other side. And I had to argue these in front of panelists of mostly alumni, some professionals in the field. And then if I move on, it'll be a different panel of alumni and professionals. And then if I move on past that next round into the quarterfinals, then the semifinals and finals, I have the potential opportunity to argue if we make it to the finals in front of a New Jersey Supreme Court judge, justice, a Pennsylvania Supreme Court justice, and a district circuit judge. Um, if I make it to the semifinals, it's district circuit judges, and in the quarterfinal round, it's professors. So it's a super prestigious competition, and I'm thinking at this point I've done really well. I'm excited. I'm happy with the performance that I put out there, which is the most important thing. And we find out tonight. So by next week, if I win, you'll find out. If I make it further, you'll find out. But stay tuned to see how I did. I think I did well. At the very least, I think I'll get a good grade out of it because it is graded. At least the first night was graded. So at the very least, I think I did well enough to get a good grade. So
And I'll double down that based on everything that I heard in our conversations. I have nothing but the utmost confidence. I peg you making it at least to the semis. Not to say I don't have faith in you, but I don't know what the other competition is like.
that's true.
However, if there was a bracket going, you're making it all the way to the semis for me, 100%. And I'm
So
excited for you, excited to hear how it goes, and I'm sure the viewers are going to be just as ecstatic.
sure, and obviously, depending on how it goes, I'll give more information the more we go. I don't want to say anything that might jeopardize um, anything that I might not be allowed to say. I don't really know, but because it's an ongoing competition. So that being said, if sports betting is legal in the state of New Jersey now, so I would say my odds are I'm probably on the lower end of the odds because I'm against people that have already made it into our moot court team that have more experience in these types of competitions. So I would say that if you were to put money on me, I would have favorable odds. Like I'd put myself around like a plus 750 to make it to the semifinals. Or put myself
I'm
right around
taking
that.
that
Maybe
every
even
day.
a little higher, maybe like a plus 1,000.
I'm taking it every day.
Fair enough. We'll find out. That's a good payout at the very least. Like you got to throw at
That
least a
is a
couple
good
bucks
payout.
down. So I
That
like
is a
those
good payout.
odds.
If they are good odds, and listen, they're vested in a good candidate, so couldn't be more proud. I'm very excited to hear about it, and I
That's
think it's
fair.
been a great thing.
Thank you, and we'll stay tuned. But you mentioned candidate. The night we are recording this, election night was 2 nights ago, and Stephen, you have some results over there. So let's talk a little bit.
So yes, sir. So New Jersey, we uh we we showed up. It was an interesting election. Not going to break any ground here. So there were all 120 seats in the New Jersey legislature were on the ballot for this election. So it was a functional midterm. And as has been the story for the past, what are we looking at? Almost 6 years now. The Republicans could have sworn that there was going to be, some sort of opportunity for them to grab leverage in any realm of, governance here in the state, but proved to be unsuccessful. They weren't able to secure a majority either in the assembly or the state senate, and obviously we have a Democratic governor. So right now, New Jersey, as it stands, based on all the results that have come in, which is most of them at a high percentage, seems that we are going to have a total clean sweep of Democrat control in the state, with the state Senate going 25 to 15 Democrats, Republicans, and the state assembly going 51 to 29 Democrats and Republicans. Few incumbents ended up losing their seats, which is always an interesting, phenomenon when you take a look at it all. Like third district, this individual Durr Republican incumbent Republican lost to a Democrat. I'm
Well,
not entirely
Stephen,
certain as
I don't
yeah.
want to cut you off quick here, but the Durr candidate, that was, if you recall, 2 years ago. Durr is the interesting candidate that took Steve Sweeney's seat, who was the Senate
Yes,
president
the
at the
trucker,
time.
the trucker,
The
right?
trucker, right, who ran like a very, very low budget campaign, wound up taking out Steve
Yes,
Sweeney, who was in fights with Governor Murphy. And so now he has then lost that seat, which he miraculously gained 2 years ago, that nobody expected.
yes, that is very true. You know what? I was reading it and I was like, Durr, Durr. That sounds like a good one, familiar one. That's right. Um, but I mean, listen, the main takeaway here, the story doesn't change much in New Jersey, at least in terms of an electoral distribution. It's no surprise New Jersey is reliably blue when it comes to elections, and this has been an indication that's not going to change for quite some time, it seems. But I'm interested to see how things progress following this midterm. What are the initiatives that these Democrats are going to be going after? We have some new faces. And like we talked about on the last episode, Governor Murphy's in an interesting position because he has, a complete party alignment across all the legislature and the executive. And it seems like his, biggest, latest, and greatest policy initiative, these offshore wind farms, have run to the hills. So he's got a good opportunity here to try and pass some legislature, redefine a new, initiative for himself as these years keep going on. And he certainly has the means to do it. Granted, as you noted, there is some contention still between the legislative Democrats and the things that Governor Murphy wants to get done. But I think overall, for me, as somebody who sits on the left here, this is exactly the kind of night that I wanted for the state of New Jersey. I think it presents a new opportunity for the Democrats to potentially get their things in order and really refocus, because the next few years are going to be really, really important. We have a general election coming up next year that's going to affect the national politics. And, New Jersey is one of those states that is never really quiet about national issues, whether it be we're in favor of whatever, the national executive is doing, the president, or whether we disagree with it. I think New Jersey always finds a way to make it into the conversation. We lead by example. And I hope that the Democrats can, rally, come up with some great initiatives for the people of New Jersey. And I think all residents, whether or not you are a Democrat, lean to the left, or if you're a Republican, lean to the right, should understand the opportunity in front of us and hope that the best things for New Jerseyans are ultimately what come out of this legislature, this new, session of the New Jersey state legislature.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Democrats picked up 5 seats in the General Assembly in this election, and I don't believe that they picked up. They might have picked up 1 seat in the Senate. Um, so look, I don't know. I gotta push back. I don't think this is some sort of monumental change for the Democratic Party. They've had these all three branches of our state government for the last, I don't know, what has it been now? 6 years since 2017. So it's the same thing as it's been. They gained 5 seats in the General Assembly, which 2 years ago they had lost a lot of ground in the General Assembly. So yeah, okay, they gained a couple more seats, but I don't think it changes much. Um, I think New Jersey's a reliably blue state, and how well Republicans have been doing, dating back to that Murphy Chitterelli election, has okay. They lost a little bit of ground here in an completely off year election, sure. But I don't think it's any sort of ground shaking change in New Jersey politics. I think it's exactly what is expected in an off year election. And
Well, I think it's a
across
good.
sorry, across the board, Democrats had a lot of big wins. The Ohio abortion referendum, the pro abortion side of that issue won, and so it looks like they're going to be enshrining abortion rights into the state constitution of Ohio. Um, I know that there was some big wins, and I know, Stephen, you have an article up about the Philadelphia mayoral election. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court election went to the Democrats. So there's a couple of big wins throughout the night, and we'll play a clip in a little bit from the RNC debate, which was last night, from when we're recording this. That Vivek Ramaswamy kind of goes up and in on the Republican National Committee and the leadership of Ronna McDaniel since she took over. So I think it's we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I don't know. I just don't see anything super monumental when it's coming out of the state of New Jersey that's going to drastically change in anything for the Murphy administration. I think it's going to be the same problems and the same ineptitude that we've seen for the last 6 years.
Ineptitude's a bit of a strong word. Um, but listen, I'll say this much to your
I don't know
point
if you've
about
seen any substantive positive change in the last 6 years.
better way to phrase your point. I think, like you said, Democrats have had, all three branches of two branches of the legislature and the executive in the state of New Jersey for 6 years. And I'm not expecting there to be some monumental change. I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put into context the moment that we are in terms of, politics and the necessity on behalf of the Democrats in the state of New Jersey to look forward, to think ahead. What are our strategies going to be? How are we going to retain these seats? How are we going to retain these voters? What are the issues that matter to the people of New Jersey? And like you said, like I thought Ohio was very telling, because it's certainly not the first state that's gone ahead and went ahead and enshrined abortion rights following the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade. So that's an issue that, like, I think there's increasing proof that Republicans are going to continue to lose on. So Democrats need to be mindful, and we need to look at bigger picture what is going on in all of these elections. I know you mentioned the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, another big win for the left. What is getting these people into these positions, and how can we continue to foster reliance on Democrats to deliver results that are going to make the citizens happy? That's really what we need to be looking forward to. Now, separate point, do I trust that the Democrats will be able to do this in the state of New Jersey? No. And I'll offer this. I think what was so amazing about the Murphy Chitterelli election was that he gave him a run for his money. Like, Phil Murphy is the first incumbent to win a gubernatorial race in the state of New Jersey. I think it was like in 20 something years,
As a
a very
Democrat.
long time, as a Democrat. Yes. So I think the Democrats kind of need another scare. They need somebody to kind of, like, to use a term of art, like the king needs to bleed, so he knows that he can leave the throne. It's not his forever. And I think that's a problem in a state like New Jersey that's reliably blue, is Democrats just assume, yeah, we're always going to have the assembly. We're always going to have, the legislature. We might lose the governorship, every other term, but, for all things considered, we hold all the cards here. And I think that has been just an attitude of politics that's permeated both parties for a very long time and doesn't produce results. But right now, more than ever, as politics are in contention, the parties are clearly on opposite ends of the spectrum in ways that are quite polarizing coming into a general election. I think that's what we need to focus on. So that's my hope for the Democrats in New Jersey.
And I would note, as bad of a night as it was for the Republicans, that they lost. How many seats did I say they lost? 5?
5
in the general. They are still up 1 from 4 years ago. So they're still net positive from 4 years ago. They didn't completely lose the entirety of their ground.
Marginal gains are still gains.
It's right. So that being said, I think it's a good time to shift, to talk a little bit about the Republicans and what we've seen. And I think this Vivek Ramaswamy clip from the RNC debate last night is pretty spot on as to the issue, the electoral issues that have been facing this party now for the last 6 or so years. And here's the clip. One second, it's loading. But Stephen, maybe we could talk a little bit about this as I try and get it to load. He goes directly after the RNC in it, but then more than that, he goes after NBC, who's hosting this debate, in a pretty direct way that you really don't see out of these major party candidates. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before in the debate.
No, and so I'll say this much. I didn't get to watch the entire debate. I did see this clip, and I think that Vivek continues every time he gets on a stage to surprise me with his ability. Because what gets me about this is it's candid. It feels like it is exactly what he wants to say, how he wants to say it, and to whom he wants to say it. And that kind of authenticity really drives this point that we're about to watch him make home. And it says to me that this is not just a talking point to him, because I think one of the things that you hear a lot in politics now, post Donald Trump, is that, it's easy to point your finger at the media, the evil media, the dishonest media, whatever we're going to call them. And a lot of politicians have kind of hopped on that bandwagon since Donald Trump started doing it when he was running for president all the way back in 2015. But Vivek, like I said, very candidly and very intentionally takes it to another level. And not only does he point the finger, like you said, at NBC, but he also points and asks for accountability from his party to address the failures that we, just briefly talked about. And that, to me, is remarkable. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. We should expect that of all of our politicians to, have accountability, seek accountability, and enforce those kinds of what he's about to ask her, questions that should be asked by party leaders to the general consensus at any given moment. So this really shouldn't be something special, and I think it says a lot about the current state of politics, party politics, inter-Republican party politics, than anything else. But if it's loaded, I'm ready to hear it, because it gets better every time.
Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. It was a cancer to the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018. 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, I mean, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Roberts.
Sorry.
This is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time
unless
is
we have
up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to
That's how
Governor
we unite this country.
Christie.
So Vivek goes absolutely off there, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I think the way that he structured his attack on the media too is spot on, because he wasn't going after them in like a very traditional way. Like his argument was leading from his attack of the RNC, saying, look, we've lost for the last 6 elections. We lost in 27. Well, okay, that's 5 elections. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2019. We lost in 2020. 1, 2, so on. Six elections there. 23. So you attack the RNC and you blame the chairwoman of the RNC and say, since you have taken over, we have seen failure upon failure upon failure. Down to this very debate, which I think is like an excellent point. This very debate is on NBC, which is one of the establishment media that everybody in the Republican Party knows, everybody that's actually like a member of the Republican Party knows that they don't trust NBC. And you're allowing NBC to get Republican viewership, Republican eyeballs on this debate, getting money from the Republican voter, when instead you could be using alternative sources of media, which will get, first of all, more eyeballs on the event, and second of all, will be a more productive event for a Republican, because they won't be getting asked the same type of gotcha questions that we've been seeing continuously. And so then to use his attack on the RNC to then transform to an attack on the establishment media, which I think is a fair and credible attack on the establishment media, his juxtaposition of the Russian collusion hoax, which we know is not true at this point, that they put out there for years upon years, with the Hunter Biden story, which every day increasingly is becoming more true, which they shut down during the last election cycle. I think it's exactly right. And if you want to talk about a rigged election, if the Republicans want to say that the election in 2020 was stolen from them, that is how the election was stolen from them. They're not going to win by trying to say that actual physical votes were changed or altered or anything like that. They're going to win by pointing out to the things that were clearly on the ground. There were direct lies about the involvement of Joe and Hunter Biden in this political corruption that was out there, that the oldest newspaper in the country, the New York Post, broke, that the establishment media told you not to believe your lying eyes, you're crazy, they didn't do anything. And today we're sitting here and more comes out that the New York Post story was exactly spot on. And there's egg on the media's face, and it should be called out for it.
I don't disagree with any of that. And I think one of the points of what Vivek said that really stood out to me, and you touched on this, was the I'm going to call it like the need at this point to use alternative media. So this news actually just broke about an hour ago. They got the reports in about viewership from the debate. It only drew about 7 million viewers. And to Vivek's point, I have X pulled up here on my phone, and I can just scroll through. Tucker Carlson, who hosts his new show on X, his viewership, and I'll do the last 3 episodes, 55 million views, 37 million views and 60 million views. So Vivek makes an incredible point. And listen, as somebody who, is pretty defiantly sits on the left, I tend to vote left on issues, support left candidates, support left causes. I'll sit down and I'll watch a 20-minute Tucker Carlson episode because I think that he's a great journalist. I might not agree with what he says. I might not agree with his positions, but I think he's a great journalist. And I think that is ultimately what Vivek was trying to say. And when he asked, I'm blanking on the woman's name, to answer the question about why NBC continued to push a false story, Vivek was the best journalist on stage for a moment there. You know what I mean? And the Republicans, what they need to do is they need to seize the opportunities in front of them. And Vivek does a great job at this. He's been on the Tucker Carlson show. I think he's been on it 3 or 4 times at this point. Like, he is putting himself in front of the viewers that he thinks he can win, that for some reason the RNC, as he made the point excellently in that video we just watched, has no interest in putting their candidates in front of. And the chairwoman of the RNC is doing a disgraceful job. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that she needs to, resign and you guys got to get somebody that's going to do better. I'll never say that. But he makes a great point, and any Republican or right-leaning voters should really pay attention to what he said in that about 2-minute clip, because he touches on a lot of important issues. He brings a lot of great points to the forefront of a discussion. And what was so like ironic about that video was he makes all of these points. He leads with that hard-hitting, or ends with that hard-hitting, like journalist question, and then they cut him off, don't address it, move on to somebody else. It's kind of like they just, we're not even going to talk about it, and proved his point by virtue of doing that.
Yeah, it's so painfully obvious, and it brings you back to that great Christie point where he calls out Marco Rubio for being a politician, and then he directly does exactly what Chris Christie called him out for, right? And in this case, Vivek directly calls out the media for being corrupt and being, one-sided, and offers them to, maybe say something or correct the record. And you know how he won? You know how he won? They didn't even say, like, that's not true. We didn't do that. You're making something up. They smirked and they said, we're going to move on to Chris Christie now. Because guess what? And if you listen to the show, you know how Steve and I talk about Chris Christie. We both have a lot of respect for Chris Christie. But one thing about Chris Christie, he was making a lot of money from ABC News, another mainstream outlet. So mainstream NBC gets attacked. They pivot to the guy who works and gets his paychecks, or got his paychecks, from ABC. You couldn't even make it up if you tried, Stephen.
So this might be a bit of a digression on what we're talking about here, but I think it's an important one, and I'll be brief about it. Even the conversation that you and I are having right now, and the fact that we, in essence, are advocating for people and establishments to really participate in this alternative media, is something that a lot of people who aren't really privy to the ins and outs of politics and what goes into journalism and journalistic ethics and all those things are going to look at, and they're going to say, oh, these are just conspiracy theorists. They don't want to believe what the mainstream media tells you. Like, that trust has been built in the public for so long to believe mainstream media. So I understand why some people might believe, alternative media is a bad thing. But I would push back, and I would offer, and I would just say to anybody who is listening to this, if you've never taken the 10 minutes, the 20 minutes, however much you can stomach to watch, right, of a Tucker Carlson X episode, just do yourself a favor and go do it. Because I guarantee you'll stay to the end, because it's different. It's true. He asks hard-hitting questions. He makes great points. And every time, like I said before, I'm not somebody that typically agrees with what Tucker Carlson stands for. But the questions that he asks as a journalist are questions that I want answers to. And they are not questions that I hear in the mainstream media. And so for Vivek to get up on the stage, on the platform that he had, and address that issue head on, I think is really brilliant. It's really important. And it might just be the key to Republican success moving forward, is really tapping into and leaning into these alternative sources of media where people do have the opportunity to ask real questions. Because I guarantee you, you are not going to hear a Democrat at all come out and suggest that voters go watch Tucker Carlson or listen to an episode of Joe Rogan, like those two of the names that Vivek had used, because it's antithetical to what works and supports the Democrats. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say the Democrats do not benefit from a media that is in their favor, that has historically been in their favor. But what I will say is that as a citizen, remove party, remove your ideologies from this. We're talking about answers from people who are in power, who make decisions about things that affect the real lives of me and AJ and you, the listener, and we deserve accountability from them and people who are going to ask them honest questions, press them on hard truths. And I really think that's the key to getting better candidates, delivering better results for the American people, and bridging the gap between the two sides by offering some sort of middle ground where it's not hyper partisan either way. And it's really just people who want honest answers to honest questions.
I couldn't agree more. I don't think I could have said it better. And just look at some of. Okay, I just want to make this clear. Like Woodward and Bernstein of Watergate fame, they made their bones at the Washington Post. In 2023, those two men would not be working at the Washington Post. They wouldn't be working at Fox News. They wouldn't be working at the New York Times. They would have Substack articles. They would be on their own, independent journalists. The best journalists that we have today in the United States, your Glenn Greenwalds, your Blair Weisses or Brett Weisses, I think that's the name. I got that name right. Alex Berenson, right? These people are not on these mainstream outlets. These mainstream outlets aren't doing proper journalism anymore. They are basically producing stories for either their own ideological well-being or the donor well-being that is behind these papers and these outlets. And it's not the journalism that our gray lady of the New York Times that they used to be. And sure, they have a lot of institutional and establishment cachet and power and trust, but that trust has been eroded clearly since 2016. Look, say what you want about Donald Trump. The man is a bull in a china shop, right? Maybe even worse. What's worse than a bull in a china shop? He just
two bulls in a china shop.
He's both of them. Like, he just runs through and ran anything, and you're left to pick up the messes and to pick up the pieces. But one thing that you're not going to replace in that china shop is the trust that people have in the mainstream media. They have completely soiled themselves on Donald Trump. Like, completely soiled themselves because they just debunked not true, incorrect information for years upon years, and it's just coming out now how much they really did lie. And then not only did they do that, but they ran for years on trying to inform you of trying to hide true stories about his competitors. And now it's coming back to bite them. And take somebody like Vivek, maybe, who's another outside of the establishment, not traditional Republican candidate, to really point the finger on that stage. Because Donald Trump's not a figure out there either, right? He has his credibility and lying issues just the same as the media does. But maybe it's time for people on both ends of the political spectrum to step up that aren't the media, that aren't Donald Trump, that can say, hold on, say what you will about, don't like Donald Trump, don't like the media, but Donald Trump was onto something here. There's something wrong here.
The only thing that I want to offer a little bit of pushback on is I agree with most of what you said. However, I don't think that this is the sole lens that we need to examine Donald Trump through. And it's not worth, the conversation, at least on this forum, but I would just say, as much as he might be onto some things, as much as he really successfully did attack like establishment media and was the victim of dishonest reporting and intentionally dishonest reporting. I don't want I don't want that to be like misconstrued with like the actual legitimate shortcomings of Donald Trump, like the individual. Like there is certain legitimacy to claims that he's currently fighting with and settling out in at least in a legal regard. Because I think you work your way into a slippery slope when you say like, oh well, the reporting was dishonest. Well, I think that makes people more inclined to believe, well, maybe these, allegations and these criminal charges and all these things are dishonest. And I think just as a matter of precaution for my own sanity, one does not, mean that just because one's true, the other is not. And we shouldn't give all deference to the fact that he's a complete victim. It is ultimately
Two things can
my
be true
point.
at once.
Yes.
Two things can be true at once. And I will agree with that. And look, and I've said this multiple times, if I had my hand pick for who I want the Republican Party to be molded after, it would not be Donald Trump. I personally, I do believe that the Oval Office, the presidency of the United States, deserves a certain level of decorum, respect, and at least public facing that people can look up and you can say to your child, like, that is somebody that you should emulate. That is a person that you should want to be like when you grow up, right? I'm with you. I would make an argument that I know a few years ago, especially, I made an argument like the president should not be your role model. He's like, it's just a job like any other. I've come around. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the leader of any country, the leader of your country, should be somebody that you can look at and be proud of. I don't think we've had that for quite a while, to be fair, though. I think that people have been soiling the Oval Office for a long time now. I want a person in the Oval Office that I can confidently point to and say, look, you might not agree with everything he or she does, but you know what? I'm proud to say that that person is the president of the United States. I can point to that person and I can say they handle themselves with dignity, respect, and honor to the office and themselves. Absolutely. I don't think Donald Trump necessarily offers that. And two things can be true at once. The media also has completely disgraced itself continuously.
Yeah. So I agree with everything and I think my big position on all of this is ultimately I agree with you. I think the office needs to be occupied by somebody worthy of respect, with good morals, good character, somebody who is easy to be proud of. On top of that, I want to add, I agree with you. The media for a very long time has been barreling down this slippery slope where they have, sort of self-inflicted wounds on their own credibility. And it seems like they have no desire to fix it. And rather than fix it, they're just going to tell you that the alternatives are worse than what they offer you. And that is no good excuse or defense for anything in this world. So my biggest takeaway from all of this would be, and this might be a shameless plug, but in the age that we live in the time that we exist in, with the access to the resources and tools and connections and people and all of these incredible things that the modern world, like the fruits of the modern world, you should spend your time as a conscious voter, as a conscious citizen, finding information that comes from sources that you trust. And I want to advocate for a brief moment and say that I believe AJ and I do a phenomenal job at trying to be, as unbiased deliverers of fact, but then engaging in some degree of, partisan discussion and, showing our hands and giving you our takes and peeling back the layers. But the most important thing that AJ and I do is we have discussions and we talk and we listen to each other and we come to, agreeable resolutions. And sometimes the agreeable resolution is that we're going to agree to disagree, and that's okay. But going out and seeking this alternative media, finding true journalists, people that care about the stories, that care about giving you accurate information and want to inform the populace so we can all be better, is exactly what I think this moment in American history calls for. And it couldn't be any clearer, given the thing that we've been talking about for the past 20 minutes, this Vivek Ramaswamy clip. He hit it perfectly. And right now, we are the best equipped. We have the most access, the best resources to go and seek out people that are going to deliver objective truths and engage in meaningful conversations about hard and difficult topics that are ultimately going to make us better. That's what we need in this moment. That is what the young people of this generation should be striving for. That is what AJ and I get on here every week with pride and sincerity to deliver to you. And we are certainly not going to stop. And I think more people need to pick up the mantle and lead this charge, because it takes an army.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just another plug, and we plugged a couple of alternative sources. I think Breaking Points with Crystal Ball and Sagar Anjadi is another phenomenal point of two people that don't agree on everything. They have discussions. They talk about the issues of the day. They're some of my favorite political commentators out there. And Vivek mentioned like a Republican debate with Joe Rogan and who was it? Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk. I think a Crystal and Sagar Rand debate would be ideal. They should just run all of the debates, honestly, and then they have a fun third person on with them. I think that would be so much fun and a great use of our time, and we'd actually get something because they'd ask real questions of the candidates. But look, Steve, we have some other stories that we wanted to get to, but I'm looking at the time now, and I just don't think that's in the cards. So we can hang on to some stories for next week. But I think that this is a very appropriate place to call it for this episode. And I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I hope that I can give you some great news come next week when we are recording again. And I'm sure that Stephen will have something great that happened. He always does have something great over the weekend and over the week that he does. So look, if you're interested in more Jersey First content, you can check us out on jerseyfirst.org, where you can check out the newsletter, sign up for the pledge. You can check out more content on Jersey First's YouTube channel, Jersey First TV on YouTube and Vimeo. And you can check us out on demand anytime on OnNJ.com. As always, I'm AJ Malillo.
Support independent journalism. I'm Stephen Rimbolo.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.